This is the Tata Tiago EV. Now it's a car we already know a lot about. In fact, 2 months ago it was launched, so we had a good first close look. We knew the prices. It began at 8.5 lakh rupees for the base model, making it in fact India's most affordable electric car. Tata Motors opened the bookings and over 20,000 of you went ahead and booked one. The only thing left to know was what's it like to drive. And that's what we're going to do today here in Goa. So I'm going to take you on a quick look around and then get straight to it. Before we begin though, do subscribe to the Autocar India channel for all the latest news and reviews. So as you can see, it's clearly a Tiago. But what differentiates the electric version from the regular cars? Well, for starters, at the front, as you can see, the grille is a blanked out portion and it does feature .EV branding. Now, .EV is something that you're going to see across Tata Motors electric cars. That's the new branding that they want to adopt for the electric range. Down below here, you also have the tri-arrow pattern that's different on the electric car. So those are a few differences on the electric version. Now at the side, a big change or a big difference is these wheel covers, wheel caps. They do look quite nice and stylish. Of course, you've got the .EV branding here as well. And on the door handles, both front and rear, you have a contrast black shade. Now over at the rear, making it quite obvious that this is the electric version, is this Tiago.EV font and lettering that's stretched out across the boot. And speaking of which, the boot, we'll have a look inside very quickly, because there's one thing I do want to point out is that boot space hasn't really gone down. There is a battery pack beneath the floor there. The standard Tiago has a 242-litre boot. This is rated at 240. What is missing, however, if you look down below, is the spare tyre. And that's because Tata had to use a battery pack that split ahead and behind the rear axle. So instead of a spare, you get a puncture repair kit, but it also includes an air compressor. Now the other difference, of course, is under the hood. Instead of an engine, you have the motor and the controller. And a lot of you have also asked us in the video that you saw earlier, the first look of this car, why do EVs have a small 12-volt battery? Now, the answer to that is quite simply because you don't need the high voltage battery for the headlights and things like the horn. A 12-volt will do just fine. There's another reason too, is that when you shut down the car and lock it, the high voltage battery is isolated from the rest of the circuit, and that's for safety and also for the fact that you don't want it to sort of unintentionally drain. So what this battery does is it arms the central locking system and of course brings the main voltage battery back into the circuit when you start up the car. In terms of features, the Tiago is very well equipped, and the EV perhaps even more so, with features like the auto AC standard across the range. Moving now to the driving bit. There are two versions, a 19.2 kilowatt-hour and a 24 kilowatt-hour battery, and they have a claimed range of 257 and 315 kilometers. We are driving the larger battery version, and we put it through a brief mix cycle test where we got 193 kilometers. Coming to power, the smaller battery version makes 61 horsepower and 110 Newton meters of torque, while the larger battery powered car makes 75 horsepower and 114 Newton meters of torque, while charging time varies from 57 minutes to under 9 hours. So how does it all feel like from behind the wheel? Well, if you've driven any electric car, a higher segment electric car, and you're used to that instant slug of torque and pin you to your seat kind of feeling, you're not going to get that in the Tiago EV. But you have to remember the segment and the price point at which this car operates. This is an budget or an economy hatchback, and from that point of view, the performance is just fine. Right now I can keep up with the traffic, I can close gaps, I can pull off, a fuss-free, sort of drama-free overtake. So really, it doesn't really leave you wanting more. There's also sport mode, which doesn't bring things into hot hatch territory, but there's a sense of urgency and overtaking is that much easier. Tata claims a 0 to 60 km/h time of 5.7 seconds, and in our initial tests we got 5.92 seconds to 60, and 14.72 seconds to the 100 km/h mark. Sport mode will also help you on a slope, as in the regular mode, despite a full throttle, the car will roll back and you'll have to use the parking brake to avoid it. So remember, use sport mode instead, as you'll get the full torque from the motor, allowing a smoother and quicker move on. On the topic of modes, switching between them is quite a bother though, as the selector knob is very slow to respond, which is a bother when going between drive and reverse when you're doing a quick 3-point turn. Quite frankly, looking at the numbers, looking at the specs of the car, I expected a sort of muted, dulled down version, maybe even like a, electric kind of golf cart, but this is far from that. It feels like a regular car. You can drive it along just happily. The performance is adequate. So, no complaints on the performance front. Besides drive modes, the Tiago EV also has 3 levels of braking regeneration. Level 3 is the strongest level of retardation. So if you were to lift off, you will quite rapidly come to a very slow crawl. Now, it doesn't come to a halt, so it isn't really one pedal driving, but it sort of has a very strong regeneration. Now, you can use this basically for when you're coming down a steep slope, so it will control your descent naturally, and you will generate electricity as well and charge the battery. On a highway, you can also switch off the regen completely to allow the car to roll further when you lift off. And in all other instances like city driving, level 1 is just fine, where it feels like regular engine braking on a conventional car. So here in the city, when you're in stop and go traffic like I am right now, the car feels just fine, like a normal automatic hatchback. In fact, let me correct myself, I'd say it feels better than an automatic hatchback, because automatic hatchbacks at the lower end tend to have AMTs, and those aren't really the best gearboxes to have. They are a bit jerky. You can feel the shifts. Here it's really smooth. So if you were looking for an automatic hatchback, electric's the way to go. So yes, we've come away impressed. The performance may not be typically electric, but as an everyday city hatch, it's really good. And that's really where the Tiago EV shines. The dimensions are just right for the city, as is the performance. The range isn't close to the claimed figure, but it will easily be in excess of most people's daily driving. The Tiago EV also rides well, ironing out most of the bumps. It's very well specced, and with a price range from 8.49 lakhs to 11.79 lakh, it's very well priced too. And here's another sweetener. Tata says that while the introductory prices are over, the new prices due in Jan will not be more than 4% extra. So all in, the Tiago EV is not just a very good electric car, but it can also make the cut as a regular city car too.